Dodge Durango, one of the last vehicles refusing to conform to the new age of SUVs, by neglect or by design. That's what we're talking about. When you look at the Durango today, surprisingly, it hasn't changed much from 2011 to 2026. That's 16 model years. Sure, there were a couple mid-cycle refreshes, one in 2014 and another in 2021, but to a lot of people, it really hasn't changed that much. In fact, Stellantis, Dodge's parent company, has committed to keeping the body style until its confirmed redesign in 2029. That'll complete its cycle in 18 model years, almost unheard of in the auto industry. Think about it. 18 years ago, the Dodge Avenger came out. Imagine Dodge doing minor refreshes on a 2007 model all the way through 2025. Wild. So let's go back to where it all started, January 1997 at the Detroit Auto Show, when Dodge first introduced the Durango. Dodge first hit the scene as a 1998 model and ran for 6 years. It shared a lot with the Dodge Dakota pickup, but offered 3-row seating and a serious towing capability. At the time, Chrysler had just reinvented the pickup truck world with a bold, reimagined Dodge Ram. Now they wanted the same success in the rapidly growing SUV market. While minivans were still popular, a lot of parents wanted something cooler, especially those who needed to tow. The standard engine was a V6, but the optional Magnum V8 could tow 7,500 pounds. That was more than the larger Chevy Tahoe or the GMC Yukon at the time. Then, in 1999, Dodge showed some real creativity and forward thinking with a limited edition Shelby version. This rare collaboration with Shelby produced the Dodge Shelby SP360, and only about 300 were made between 1999 and 2000. It essentially paved the way for what later turned into the RT and SRT models. Only available in Shelby blue with white racing stripes that really stood out and screamed the 90s at the time. Only available in the supercharged 5.9-liter V8, making around 360 horsepower and 412 foot-pound torque. It was a far cry from the Hellcats that we have today, but back then it was practically unheard of. It had upgraded suspension, big brakes, Shelby badging, racing bucket seats, and a carbon fiber trim. It was all wild for an SUV of that era. So the first generation had a strong debut with real V8 muscle and family-friendly space. Still very truck-based with some criticism for fuel economy and an aging design in a rapidly changing market. The Shelby version did prove that Dodge could be more than just an SUV though. It could be a sleeper performance machine. On to the second generation. This one ran from 2004 all the way through 2009, so it was another 6 model year span. It was bigger, wider, and more advanced with new technology like early touchscreen radios, backup camera, even Bluetooth. Features that were still pretty rare back then. And now, Dodge had something to brag about this time. The legendary V8 Hemi.
Can you say Hemi?
Hemi.
That's my boy.
Styling was more refined and shared cues with the Grand Cherokee. Dodge even introduced a limited trim level, replacing the RT. It's interesting because this generation leaned more towards comfort and luxury, while the first and third generation leaned back towards performance. Dodge even experimented with a hybrid version later in this run, but more on that in a second. Sales were booming in 2005 and 2006, Dodge's best years on record. Riding that wave, Chrysler launched a more upscale twin, and they called it the Chrysler Aspen. It aimed for a more premium audience, featuring refined styling and 20-inch wheels. And honestly, the Aspen was well done. It just didn't stick around. And that was probably because of bad timing. Now about that hybrid. Chrysler tried to capture the growing eco market, offering hybrid versions of both Durango and the Aspen in 2009. It just didn't last very long. They probably spent a little too much time developing the vehicle, and it got launched at the wrong time. It only had about 1,000 or less vehicles that were actually made with that powertrain, and most of those are probably gone today. Unfortunately, timing just wasn't on their side. It was the late 2000s and the recession was hitting hard. SUV sales were just plummeting. And by late 2008, Dodge and Chrysler had pulled the plug on production for both models. And this was before the 2009 model year was even in its present. Then, nothing, at least for a while. We've reached the longest lasting and arguably the most exciting era, the third generation, 2011 through present. After 21 months from ending the Generation 2, Dodge debuted the all-new 2011 Durango at the LA Auto Show in November of 2010. Now built in Michigan, it switched from a body-on-frame truck-like build to a unibody platform shared with the Grand Cherokee. In marketing, nailed it. They pitched it as the Durango taking some time off, getting stronger and smarter. One ad even said,
"It's only been 2 years, but it's done more in 2 years than most cars do in a lifetime."
The early years were 2011 through 2013, and it launched with the still-in-use 3.6-liter Pentastar V6, but it also brought back the 5.7-liter Hemi V8, which was great. Even better, though, the RT trim level returned, signaling Dodge's return to its roots. In the limited trim level, that was gone. They did still have the Citadel. That was new for 2011, but big thing is the RT was returned. Now, this launch only had 3 model years of production before getting refreshed, and I'm actually still curious on why they moved that quickly on a refresh, but then left it for so long. Then came the modernized 2014 refresh with none other than Ron Burgundy as the spokesman, while promoting the Anchorman 2 movie. Dodge had added the 8-speed automatic transmission, still used today, and the now iconic racetrack LED taillights, also still used today, and refreshed the interior. By 2015, Dodge had fully embraced the muscle identity. Tim Kuniskis was now over the brand and wanted to bring back what he felt Dodge brothers originally wanted: power. Tim introduced the Hellcat in the Charger and the Challenger, and it grabbed headlines. So at the same time, he improved the Durango RT, complete with a louder exhaust and a red sporty leather interior still available on the 2026 models. Then in 2018, Dodge decided it was time for the Durango to join the law enforcement world, not just the Charger that had been their main pursuit vehicle. By then, many state police and local agencies were already running the Ford Explorer and the Chevy Tahoes as their primary fleet SUV. So Dodge saw an opportunity, and they believed that they could offer a better option. The result was the Durango Pursuit, built with the Hemi V8, all-wheel drive, larger brakes, reinforced cooling system, and designed for pursuit. Fast forward to 2025, and that bet seems to be paying off because more departments across the country are starting to add the Durangos into their fleets, with Dodge even winning back some of Ford's former police accounts. Soon after, Dodge kept embracing the muscle by adding the SRT 392 V8 engine and turning the Durango into a true performance SUV. The lineage came full circle, from the Shelby SP360 to the RT, now the SRT era. The SRT made a big splash in the headline and continued to show off how Dodge was trying to transform their brand and the SUV. And then they really turned some heads by introducing the Durango Hellcat in 2021. 710 horsepower, full Hellcat supercharged and capable of gapping stock Corvettes, even hitting 1,000 horsepower when tuned by Hennessy. What's funny about the Hellcat Durango debut is Tim originally promised this as a 1-year-only model.
The Hellcat Durango will be a single model year run.
But the Hellcat kept coming back. 23 through today, it quietly kept surviving as the Trailhawk, the Charger, Challenger, and TRX were all discontinued. It was as if the Hellcat heart was hiding inside the Durango, keeping that engine alive. My theory is that the Durango was the lifeline for the Hellcat. They killed the Trackhawk, the Charger, the Challenger, the TRX with the Hellcat engine, but the Hellcat was still alive and quietly hid from the chopping block inside the Durango. And Dodge didn't talk about it much either. It was as if their thoughts were, maybe if we don't say anything, the Reaper won't notice, and we can still keep this thing going and not take it out of production just yet. So 1 year after another, it kept getting renewed. And then once Carlos Tavares, the French CEO that was behind removing the octane vehicles, was no longer a part of Stellantis, and Tim Kuniskis came back into the picture, he started making changes to keep the high octane performance alive. And when it seemed like the Hemi was gone for good, they brought it back for the Ram, and then making a real bold move by making the Hemi standard in the 2026 Durangos, while the competitors were doing 4-cylinder engines. And with that, the curtain was dropped, and Dodge came roaring back with a commercial that reminded everybody, yeah, we still make the Hellcat. It never went away. And that's where we are today. With Dodge leadership changes and going back to bold moves, they seem to be doubling down on power again. And the market is loving it. Even with an aging design, sales remain strong. The 2025 to 2007 window for this SUV might actually be a sweet spot. It offers modern tech, great engines, and a value that's unsurpassed when you consider options to dollar value. In October 2025, Stellantis' new CEO, Antonio Filosa, confirmed $13 billion in U.S. investments, with 5 new models coming by 2029, including the next generation Durango launching in January of that year from the Detroit assembly plant.
We are investing in the United States $13 billion in all our U.S. plants, in our 4 iconic American brands.
Like I said in the beginning, that means this generation will have a very long model run, likely hitting 18 model years on the same basic design. An incredible run. Alright, so summing everything up, it started with a rugged truck-based first generation to a refined second generation to today's muscle SUV third generation. And the Durango story mirrors Dodge's evolution. Few 3-row SUVs can claim what Dodge has offered in the SRT or Hellcat performance. Durango just sits in a class of its own. It's got some real gems like the Shelby SP360, way ahead of its time and now a collectible. And now the 2026 V8 only lineup and confirming its redesign up in 2029, Dodge is proving that muscle still matters. That wraps up our deep dive on the Dodge Durango across generations in nearly 30 years of SUV evolution. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell so that you don't miss the next vehicle deep dive. See you on the next one.